Welcome to Com 1010. This is the first lecture for this class, and today we are going to be talking about some of the things that we get from the first chapter. And I'll also be giving kind of a little introduction to what this class is all about. So, Com 1010 is about the basics of communication. It's the intro to communication class. And so we'll be just lightly touching on a number of different subjects, and we'll be moving on kind of quickly through them. We'll be doing different subjects just about every week. And so we'll talk about different aspects of communication. We'll be talking about intrapersonal communication, that's like self-talk, what you say to yourself. We'll be talking about interpersonal communication and how we talk to others. We'll also be talking about things like social media, and we'll be talking about mass media, like a news broadcast that goes out to the wide world. We'll be talking about these different aspects of communication and also what really makes up communication. But to go into that, let's move on to the next slide. So, what is communication? Communication is how we share our thoughts, our ideas, our feelings, our desires. That's how we create shared meaning. So, words and other things, they don't have meaning by themselves. That meaning is something that we assign to them. Otherwise, if you look at it without the meaning, it's just sounds or symbols. In the case of letters, just scribbles. But we have taken those symbols and have created meaning. The textbook uses an example of the word chair. So if you disassociate the word with the item, then it's just meaningless. It's like it just sounds, but when it's connected to the idea of something you sit on, then hey, that's a chair. So we don't always just assign meaning randomly. There are some things that you might not think that they have any connection to anything, and maybe that's true. But there are others that they give us definite signs and clues as to what the meaning is. And so, if, for example, sorry, I've got a frog in my throat or something. If we're talking about someone start talking about a family member having passed away, they are going to use these words to express their sadness. But at the same time, there are also going to be these clues that are going to help cue you into the fact that they're sad, that they're in mourning. And some of these signs might be the look on their face, their facial expressions. Do they have a frown on their face? Are they crying? Are they looking depressed? Maybe. These might be signs of clues that are going to help you assign meaning to the words that they're using. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, on this slide, we're going to talk about culture and context. Now, what these two have in common is it's going to help us make some determinations about assumptions that are going to be made when we're communicating. And assumptions aren't always bad. Sometimes they're kind of shortcuts that help us get to the point of what we actually want to talk about, what we want to communicate. But it also, if we can see these assumptions, it'll help us identify what biases we're going to face, because assumptions can be a very negative thing at the same as well. All right. So when we talk about culture, that's your background, where you're from, who you know, the people you're around, what you do for work, where you go to school, where you live, how you were raised. All of these things come together along with your thoughts and your beliefs to create culture. And so based on all of those, your decisions are going to be different. The way you go about things is going to be a little bit different. And yeah. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about culture. And when we're communicating, that culture will come into play with how we interact. And when we talk about context, I think that kind of speaks for itself. That's like what's going on, the situation, situational. And we can make assumptions based on certain situations. Say someone walks into a restaurant and they pick up a menu. Well, based on that context, you think that they might be interested in ordering some food. They might be hungry. And that would be a reasonable assumption based on the context of coming to a place where they make food, picking up a menu to see what they make, what food is available. Those are things that will help cue you into the context of what's going on. And together, these will impact how you see what's going on around you. Now, when we talk about the actual action of communicating, it is a process. And there are a number of different models and things we'll talk about in this class that explain the ideas and like help us kind of form a picture in our head of what is happening when we are communicating. So there's a couple of different ones we'll focus on primarily in this class. So there is a one-way message where there is a person, they create a message, they encode it, and they're going to send it. And outside of that, there might be noise that's getting in the way that's causing problems, but the sender is creating their message, and they have a target and they're sending it over there. And then a separate model for communication is called the transactional model of communication. And we'll talk about it later on in this course. But the transactional model is more of an accurate representation for communication because instead of it being a one-way trip for a message, it is the interaction, more of like a representative of a conversation. Because communication isn't usually isolated. It's a back and forth. And so with transactional communication, the sender, they're going to encode their message, they're going to create their message, and they're going to send it to the receiver. And the receiver is going to get that message, and they're going to decode it. They're going to take that message they received and try to assign meaning to it. And then at the same time, they are encoding the response and sending it back. And then it just continues back and forth until hopefully we create a shared meaning, a shared understanding. And that's what we talk about when we talk about the actual action of communicating. This is the final slide for this class, or for this, not this class, this lecture today. And shared meaning is kind of the goal when we are communicating with others. When we communicate with others, we're trying to show them what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and have someone else understand. That is the goal of communication. So, in order to create shared meaning, we're going to be taking, like we talked about earlier, those symbols and the signs, and we're going to take these things and we're going to assign meaning to them. We're going to say, this is what this means. And in order to create shared meaning, we can't be isolated and independent. We need to check in with the other party and say, hey, this is what I got from what you said. Is that really what you meant? And that will be a useful thing when you're talking to your roommates and you're talking about, hey, I need you to do your part and clean your own dishes. But if they're not really listening, they might think, I just need to make sure my dishes make it to the sink. Or that it's okay as long as as long as the dishes get done by someone, then while having the dishes get done is an excellent goal, the roommate who wants the person who wants their roommate to do their own dishes is going to be frustrated when that isn't the outcome. The outcome they wanted was for everyone to be responsible for their own dishes. You get them dirty, you clean them yourself. But if their roommate doesn't have those same values, they don't achieve the same shared meaning in this conversation, then there's going to continue to be a conflict here. But if we can establish that shared meaning, we're much more likely to resolve those conflicts. Now, as much as I'd like to say that communication will solve every problem, it's just not the case. And it is a bit idealistic to hope to think that it would. What it can do is it can help create a platform where we can work out those problems, where we can create the best solution possible. It may not be a perfect solution, but we can hopefully make things better. All right, and also, just being the end of this lecture, I want to remind you to complete the assignments for this week and read your textbook. It goes into a lot more detail about the things we talked about in this lecture, and I'll see you in the next one.